Hello and welcome to On Books. This is Chris here. I'm just sipping some Riesling up here in New York City. I got a few announcements up front. I just finished doing some rehearsals. I have a sketch show this week in New York City. If you happen to be in the city, that's at the People's Improv Theater. You can come check that out at 6 p.m. this Saturday. I'll post that on the Facebook wall, facebook.com/onbookshow. You can check that out. I've also been making a lot of videos. You can check out some of my videos on YouTube. So if you want to see me and not just hear me, you can check that out. You can subscribe and do all that. I would love for you to check them out. I put out a new one this week called Older Feels Faster, about getting older and just how time seems to be going faster, and a few of my theories and a few theories from some of the books that we've talked about. Put it all together with some cool B-roll and images, and I hope you enjoy that. So that's out there as well. So yeah, I've been making things. It's been good. It feels good to make things. It feels good to put things out there. It feels good to do this podcast. It feels good to have a drink while I do it and talk to you. And I've been getting a lot of emails from y'all, and that's also very nice. So you could reach out anytime. I'm Chris at on-books.com. Those are all the announcements. That's everything I got. All right, I got a show. I got new videos. You know how to reach me. All right, so let's kick this off. Right now, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you through a mic, and you're listening. You're listening through headphones, and we are doing this podcast thing. Today, I'm going to share with you a blog post that I've been working on for a while, and it should get published this week in the Huffington Post, so you can look out for that. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to read from it, or really just kind of extemporaneously kind of share these ideas with you, because it's been something that's been on my mind for quite a bit now, and it's also brewing up in my head after having done about 30 episodes of this podcast. I'm looking back at the books. I'm looking at these books that you and I are talking about and thinking about each week, and stepping back and going, well, why am I choosing to read these books? Or what's so important about these? And I'm seeing certain themes, and it may not be quite as clear to you, but to me, I'm seeing these themes. And one of the themes that I'm finding is gravitating towards authors and people who put more good out into the world than bad. I know that's completely subjective, what is good and what is bad and how much and all that stuff, but that's exactly where my mind goes toward. What is this? How can I, the reader or the listener, really trust or believe this? Now, I'm not doubting the authenticity of the trust necessarily, but where do these thoughts come from in my head that I feel this way? More of the feeling. Yeah, it's more about the feeling. So I've been writing about that. I've been expressing that and chatting with my friends about that. And I'm going to put this out there to you today. And at the end, I'm going to ask a question of you, because I want to know how you rationalize all this stuff. And so I'm going to ask you to listen, digest, and email me. And over the next few weeks, I'm going to choose a few books that hit upon this theme of giving more than you receive, of leaving the world a better place than you found it. Now, I had a few friends over my house last week, and we had some drinks, and I asked this question. Well, actually, I read this quote, which I may or may have not have read it on the show before, but I'll read it to you again now. The quote goes, "I wake up in the morning torn between a desire to improve the world and a desire to enjoy the world. This makes it hard to plan the day." E.B. White. Love this quote. This is one of the things that tears at my core, looking at the imprints and the output that I put into the world and questioning whether it is making the world a better place or a worse place. And also just conflicted by, how can I put my energy into something that allows me to both enjoy my time doing it and simultaneously benefits the world or other people around me? That's pretty hard, huh? So let me get into the writing here. I'm going to share this with you, and then at the end, I'm going to ask you to give me some feedback. I'd love to hear from you. So this post is titled, "To Leave the World Better Than How I Found It." It's also known as the campsite rule. Maybe if you've listened to Dan Savage's podcast, he's a sex advice columnist. He has a tremendously awesome podcast, which is worth checking out. And on the podcast, he talks about romantic relationships, and his advice is what he calls the campsite rule. The advice goes like this: when two people are in a relationship, the more experienced person in the relationship has the responsibility to leave their partner better than they found them. I mean, how nice is that? To leave somebody better than how you found them, to meet somebody and leave them better. It's amazing. Yeah, after hearing Dan Savage talk about the campsite rule for the first time, I extended this metaphor of the campsite rule and this relationship with another person. I extended it to my relationship with the world. And then I began to rework this idea into a rule for living. So then I started to think, well, how can I, in my relationship with the world, leave the world a better place than I found it? The campsite rule. But yeah, I know it sounds nice in theory, and it's like one of those things where you're thinking, how do I measure better? How do I leave it better than I found it? And what am I sacrificing? Like, what goes into this big idea, this big kind of almost pretentious, like huge idea? Who am I to do that, right? It's a lot of pressure for a little tiny human like me to sit here recording this in a little studio and say, I'm gonna do that big thing. Right? That's how I feel. So I started looking outward first. I started looking to other people and the things that they have left when they passed away. And I came down with a small list of things that people have left behind. Do you want to hear them? Okay, ready? Number one, people leave behind ideas. Ideas to me are things like chocolate chip cookies. Like we all know what that is. We all know how to make them. But that was originally an idea that someone had, a recipe that was invented by a woman named Ruth Graves Wakefield. And not too long ago, this was in the 1930s. So she left behind this idea, this recipe that's now part of our consciousness. Okay, and so that's just one example of an idea, but also you can think of ideas as something like democracy or dance moves, gestures we make, habits we form. The second thing that people leave behind are physical items or products. You can think about Steve Jobs leaving behind the iPhone. You can think about F. Scott Fitzgerald leaving behind The Great Gatsby. These are things that we leave behind, reproductions of our own being. We also leave marks on the earth. I think about Rome. I went to Rome a few years ago now, and you can see the marks of the ruins that are still here today with us. I live in New York City, and there are the street grid system. The street grid system, I walk outside, and I walk right angles and left angles and straight. All of this is over 200 years old now. Somewhere early 1800s, I think it was like 1811, this guided system was invented. And still today, these marks on the earth are things that we follow. Some people leave hateful things. Think Hitler. While some people leave love. Think like John Lennon. So it occurs to me that each of these things that we leave, all these examples of things that have been left behind by people, each of these are now, well, they're no longer the person who made them's thing. Like John Lennon no longer owns those songs. They're ours. These ideas are ours. And I have this image in my head when I think of this, when I think of John Lennon. I have the idea, this image of him being, like of him leaving echoes, of him leaving ripples, of him giving that to each person on the planet. Like we're these echo machines. Like that's just the way I see it, as like an echo, this kind of ripple of influence. It goes far and wide. It goes to all the people on the planet and potentially through the future generations of people that will be influenced by these songs of John Lennon. And of all these examples I've been giving you, chocolate chips. My grandkids will eat chocolate chips. They won't know where it came from, but it's theirs. It's more theirs than the person that gave it to them. All right, that's my first step in thinking about, how do I leave the world a better place than how I found it? I've come up with this visualization of leaving these echoes. And you might be thinking at this point, hey, Chris, well, all of these echoes, I'm using these finger quotes. Yeah, all of these echoes, yeah, they sound important. All these people left behind important things, but my echoes are not important. The things I do, I'm not Steve Jobs, I'm not going to write The Great Gatsby. You're wrong. We praise revolutionists. We praise these people who are movie stars. We admire them. We remember history, the broad strokes of where we've come from and the big events. It's easy to get hyper focused and to want our lives to emulate those, to be big. You or I, we will put out so much negative energy into the world just to get to the big thing, right? We need to make that big thing happen at work. So we're going to eat crappy food, or we're going to walk past or not call our mom that day. The small things, those go unnoticed, that negative energy. We want to make a big dent in the universe. And I actually think that might be the wrong way to go about leaving the world a better place than how you found it. If you're interested in improving the world, it's the smaller echoes, the echoes that there's more of every single day, that add up to something bigger over the course of your life. So I'm going to turn this to me now. I'm going to judge myself. I'm going to think about, okay, I have this idea of the campsite rule of leaving the world a better place. And I have this kind of like image in my head of leaving these echoes, these big dents in the universe that I could make, or these small dents in the universe. And I looked to myself and I tried to observe what these small echoes look like. I'm going to share with you my top 5 list of the events or the echoes that I'm leaving behind that I pay attention to hopefully make the world a better place. And if you have any comment on these, anything I'm missing, anything I should be thinking about that I left out, let me know. But these are my top 5. All right, starting with number 1, people. The people that I interact with each day, that definitely sends out energy that one way or another improves or doesn't improve the world, right? I think that each of us have that power. And so people, right? This includes my colleagues, my families, but even the people I pass out on the street, the grocery store, all this kind of stuff. My energy has a huge impact on all of them. There's a quote by author Ian McLaren who says, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." This really resonates with me. When I go to sleep each night, I hope that I leave in the world more kindness than I require myself, putting more empathy out there. To make this quota, well, that might mean being kind each day to those who aren't necessarily in a position to be as kind to me. Echo number 2, money. The choices of money that I make, how I spend my money, echoes out and ripples in the world around me. I believe it's the most powerful echo that you have, that I have, that you have, that we all have. Consumerism. Consumerism is a motherfucking weapon. It is something you are armed with. It is a power, and maybe you don't even know it. With every purchase, think about this, with every purchase, I am approving a new idea. I am giving the owner of that idea resources, power, and the ability to keep growing that idea. And with every non-purchase, well, I decide which companies can thrive. As a business owner myself, that is 100% true that our business here, the company that I run 1 month, is completely dependent on the people that show up every day and fund this endeavor. And this podcast as well is built upon the listeners. Each of us is a consumer, but each of us is also voting. There's this concept you've probably heard of, voting with your dollar. I think it is one of the most significant echoes that you can make by putting yourself out there in the world. Voting with your dollar, your money, your money, your money. Think about that. All right, echo number 3, how I treat the planet. I've made a personal pledge myself, just to myself, to use products that I believe, to the best of my knowledge, are improving the planet and not hurting the planet. I try my best to limit consumption of animal products when I can for this reason. I mean, look, it's not a perfect science. I don't know everything, and I'm sure that there's ways that I could be spending more time or money to improve and perfect this. I try to do the best I can, 80-20. I at least believe that. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm full of shit. Whatever. I don't know what to say, but I'm putting that out there, and I'm going to continue to work on that a little bit every day. I'm getting a lot of stuff wrong, I'm sure, but that's the vibe. That's the idea. The earth. It's something I'm at least putting attention on. That's echo number 3, the earth. Echo number 4 is ideas, the quality of the ideas that I'm able to share and leave behind with you right now, for instance, in this moment, but as well as the smaller ideas like things on a Facebook wall that come down my wall, or the likes that I give ideas that I approve of, or that I don't give and then let rise to the top. Similarly to voting with your dollar, now the currency of the planet has become digital likes, digital currency, digital attention. So what I choose to share and like and comment on, that adds either a positive or a negative spin, and I want to become more aware of how my ideas are a powerful echo that I put into the world. Finally, number 5, children. If I choose to have children or not, I'm still working that out. But if you've listened to other episodes, you know. But the degree to which I prepare and send children to the future is a wonderful echo, right? Or even just the children that are around you that aren't your own, but how we prepare for the future. An author that I really like, Neil Postman. He wrote Amusing Ourselves to Death. Oh, beautiful book. And he calls children the living messages that we send to a time we will not see. That's a great responsibility. Kids can become monsters. I know it. I've seen them. I've been them. But they also possess the ability to leave the world better than we left it for them. And if you're a guiding example yourself of how to live well, there's a reasonable probability that if you do have children, you can be sending that echo to the future. Children, number 5. Okay, so those are the 5 different places that I'm looking for echoes each day: the people, the money, the way I treat the earth, ideas, and potentially children. Now, how does this all come back to you? Well, there's a lot of big ideas being put out here, these big echoes, these small echoes, all these things, right? Each of us has the power to make a dent in the universe. And it doesn't have to be an all-at-once big thing. It's these little things that add up, these little echoes that we share. And that might feel like a big responsibility. Well, it is. But we can tackle it day by day. There's a quote by Rick Rubin, the music producer, and he once gave advice to a musician, and he said, you don't have to be better than the Beatles. You just have to be better than you were yesterday. And I know that this lesson can be applied to all of us. I mean, how wonderful would it be if each of us could just be a little bit better than we were yesterday? And you can. You are influential. You, with each of the millions of actions you take each day, you're adding up to the collective physical, social, and intellectual geography that we all share. More is more. More of these small actions. Over time, it all adds up. Next week, we'll be returning with a book. This will be The Clock of the Long Now by Stewart Brand. In this conversation and this way of thinking, these ideas that I'm putting out in this episode, I'm really setting up that book and the next few books in this series that we're going to talk about. Because The Clock of the Long Now, it's where I came from these thoughts, and I was like looking for examples of ways to apply this. And Stewart Brand has really done that in challenging me as a reader to think beyond myself and how the things that I do day to day affect people 10,000 years from now. What is that responsibility like? And there's a great cast of characters in this book. I mean, it's a nonfiction book, and there's Kevin Kelly's in it, Brian Eno, Jeff Bezos. A lot of great people are involved in this project. I'm going to bring that to you next week, and that will be part of a series of a few books and episodes where we cover more on this. So if you like this idea of leaving the world better than you found it, please check that out. Please also sign up for my mailing list if you want these updates. That's Chris. That's not what it is. That's my email. It's on-books.com. Got it? At on-books.com. And you'll get the emails, and you can subscribe on iTunes. Because like I said, it's going to be a series. So if you want to stay in touch week over week and get these as they come out, that will be good. I may even stagger how they come out. Maybe they'll come out 2 at a time or week over week. I'm not totally sure yet, but there's a lot of good things coming up, and I'm pumped. I'm so excited. So thank you for listening. As always, this is On Books. Please subscribe. I said that already. You're awesome. All right. This has been On Books. Until next week.